I'll start to let people in. Perfect. And I'll kick us off with some housekeeping and hand it off to you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Good morning, everyone. Welcome on in. As we kind of get started, I'm going to hit us off with some housekeeping, and I know people are going to keep trickling in, but my name is Mikhail English. I will be your moderator and tech support today for this Workforce Wednesday webinar talking about SNAP work requirements. Before I hand it off to our lovely presenters, I'm going to just let you know a little bit about our webinars. So, number one, if you are looking to unmute or turn your camera on, just know that that function with during our webinar series is going to be taken away. In addition, so if you have any questions, throw those in the Q&A. We do have different parts throughout this presentation that will be set aside to answer those questions. So we promise we're going to try and get to all of those. If you are wondering, this recording or this session will be recorded, and if you want to go back and rewatch that, it will be put up on the WIOA Professional Development website along with the slideshows that and materials that you see used here today. And I believe those are the main things that I wanted to talk to you guys about. And I will start us off with our polls. So these are our standard Workforce Wednesday webinar polls. We ask the same two questions with these. So number one, which partner do you represent? Beautiful. I'm seeing some people answer already. I appreciate that. And number two, where is your local area? Again, I know we're kind of just coming on in, so as you enter, please answer these two polls. We're seeing a lot of Title I so far, which is great. Thank you guys all for being here. And a lot of Northern Illinois, kind of spread all out though. Give us about 10 more seconds. We still have some people waiting on answering. All right, and I'll end that for you guys to see. Again, lots of Title I. We're still spread out, and Northern Illinois is winning that one. Thank you guys all for being here, and I'm going to hand it on off to our lovely presenters to talk about SNAP workforce changes.
Thank you. Before we get started with our panelists, I just want to ground us in a little bit of the framework. Good morning, everyone. My name is Gerald, and I serve as the Special Populations Program Manager at the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Thank you all for joining today. I want to start by sharing a few important reminders from DCO that have been shared with the field. Today's webinar will include brief updates from representatives from IDHS and the recently launched Job Ready Illinois initiative. There are a couple multiple ways where individuals can meet these SNAP work requirements. This includes employment, both paid and unpaid, as well as participation in approved programs such as education, training, or work-based learning. Individuals may also meet requirements through community service or volunteering or through a combination of these activities. Supported through a public-private partnership, Job Ready Illinois is one option available to support this effort. While Job Ready Illinois is available to any job seeker, it is primarily intended to support SNAP recipients who may need help meeting those work requirements. I also want to emphasize a few important reminders to our workforce partners. Job Ready Illinois is not a mandatory and does not replace services provided by local workforce innovation areas, American Job Centers, or Illinois WorkNet. It is an added tool designed to complement existing workforce services and provide flexible options for SNAP participants. Workforce staff should not determine SNAP eligibility or compliance. All SNAP-related questions should be referred to IDHS or their local Family Community Resource Center. From a DCO perspective, our goal is to align existing workforce services with SNAP requirements, not to introduce new requirements or additional burden on providers. With that, I'll turn it over to Sheena and Matt, who will be presenting more in depth about SNAP exemptions and Job Ready Illinois. Thank you, everyone.
Good morning. Thank you, Gerald. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sheena Panor, the Associate Director of the Office of Workforce Development here at the Illinois Department of Human Services. Really happy to be with you all today. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing to help our Illinoisans connect to economic mobility. As Gerald said, I will start us off by grounding us in the context of the SNAP work requirement, this new challenge that we're facing, and how we can all work together as part of the workforce system to help individuals to meet the work requirement and keep their benefits, but of course also connect to pathways for self-sufficiency. And so I will talk through that grounding of the work rules and how individuals can meet, and then very happily turn it over to Matt Bruce to talk about this new resource, Job Ready Illinois. So let me start sharing my slides. All right, hopefully you can all see my slides. All right, so first, giving you some background on the SNAP work requirement. So here in Illinois, SNAP recipients ages 18 to 64 years old who do not meet an exemption, which is one of the good reasons that we'll get to on another slide, will lose eligibility for SNAP once they receive 3 full months of SNAP benefits in a 3-year period without meeting the work requirement. However, those individuals who use their 3 months can regain eligibility by either meeting an exemption or meeting the work requirement for 80 hours and 30 consecutive days. And again, we'll talk through what those exemptions are and what it means to meet, but really just want to emphasize that individuals, even if they've used their 3 months, they can regain eligibility. So here in Illinois, we lost our waiver of the work requirement as a result of HR 1 and changes that were made to the criteria for states to request waivers of the work requirement. And so the work requirement has been in effect here in Illinois since February 1st. And we had about 100,000 of our SNAP recipients lose eligibility on May 1st. That was the first time, individuals reached that first set of 3 months who were not meeting the work requirement. And so, they received February, March, April. They had been identified as individuals who need to meet the work requirement. They lost their eligibility May 1st. But now, again, we want to make sure those customers, community stakeholders, our communities really know that there are those pathways to regain eligibility. So we're going to be focusing a lot of our efforts on raising awareness about that. And then the current 3-year period here in Illinois, it does run continuously even while states are under a waiver. So just want to make sure people realize that our current 3-year period will end on December 31st of this year, which means the new 3-year period begins and the time limit will reset on January 1st, 2027. So January 1st of next year, everybody, if they've used months, everything will be erased. Everybody starts over again January 1st. And they will be eligible again, even if they had gotten three months this year. And this also coincides with the Medicaid work requirement, also called the community engagement requirement for Affordable Care Act expansion adults, which will take effect also on January 1st. So in the coming months, we'll be doing a lot of raising awareness and education with our with our partners in HFS on Medicaid, so that our communities, all of you are aware January 1st, what that means for those individuals who are also on Medicaid. So again, recapping just that, HR 1 made some changes in terms of expanding the group of individuals that are subject to the work requirement, also changed the criteria for states to get waivers from the work requirement. So statewide, the work requirement has been in effect since February. We had our first round of individuals who lost their eligibility on May 1st, about 100,000 SNAP recipients who lost their eligibility. And so now we're really focused on helping them regain eligibility, as well as, of course, helping our SNAP recipients who are still receiving benefits to keep and maintain those benefits. So that's just a quick overview. And now I will spend some more time talking about exemptions in the next slide, but also wanted to make you aware that when someone applies or renews their SNAP benefits, their FCRC caseworker during the interview will be screening them for all exemptions, asking them all of those different questions, coding the case accordingly. And so if someone is identified as someone who needs to meet the work requirement, they will get this 5175 SNAP work rules notice. And this notice will tell them all of the household members who have to meet one of the work rules. And they will get this notice when they first apply, when they renew their benefits, and during their certification period, if someone's status changes. So someone becomes newly subject to the work requirement, or if someone joins their household who's subject to a work requirement. So again, as Gerald said, it is our FCRC caseworkers. They just determine who needs to meet the work requirement based on screening, and individuals who have to meet one of the work rules will receive this notice. So just want you to know, that sequence of events. So now with the exemptions or good reasons that someone between the ages of 18 and 64 may not have to meet the work requirement, we are first and foremost wanting to make sure everyone who meets one of these reasons is getting an exemption, so they're not at risk of losing their SNAP benefits if one of these things apply. So that's why we want to make sure that you are aware of it, and I will put in the chat a link to a screener tool that we have on our IDHS website, which basically serves almost like a checklist for someone to figure out if they might meet an exemption from the work rules. So I will put this in the chat once I. And so here lists all of the exemptions. I want to emphasize the ones in the middle row that are in the dark blue, because those are ones that might not be automatically captured in the system through a data match or something else, and that we find that these are ones that individuals may not know that it applies to them. So we'll spend more time on the ones in the middle row, but I want to talk through all of them because, again, we really just want to make sure that first and foremost, when we are educating individuals on SNAP, they know all of these reasons. And again, even though it is the FCRC caseworker who determines if someone meets an exemption and will code the case, we want you to know because, as you're working with individuals who may be on SNAP, really appreciate your help in guiding them to use the screener tool or check out our website and see if one of these reasons may apply. So in the first row, we have those age-based exemptions, right? So if someone is under age 18 or they're age 65 or older, this will be captured in our SNAP eligibility system, and that individual would not have to meet the work requirement. If someone is pregnant, if they have someone in their SNAP household under age 14, and again, our FCRC caseworkers will be working with that household to figure out who all is in the household. If there's someone under age 14 in the household, the system should capture that all the adults in that household are then exempt. Certain Native Americans are exempt. This was something added by HR 1. Also, if someone's already working at least 30 hours a week or earning $217.50 or more per week, which is about $935 gross per month. If that person tells the FCRC caseworker they're working 30 or more hours or earning more than that amount, again, this will be captured in our system, and that person would be exempt actually from the work requirement based on the number of their work hours and their earnings. Then in the middle row, the first two are about caretaking. And that's when we want to make sure people realize that if they're caretaking for a child under age 6 or a person who needs help caring for themselves, this person doesn't have to be in their SNAP household or residing with them. If they're taking care of a young child or, a sick family member or somebody else, and that really gets in the way of their ability to get and maintain a job of 20 or more hours a week, that person could get an exemption. Also, if they're not able to work 20 or more hours a week due to a physical or mental health reason, and this could be due to homelessness, substance abuse issues, mental health issues, physical challenges, if there are any of those barriers that make it hard for someone to get and maintain a job due to those reasons, they can request an exemption. Also, if someone is going to a school, college, or training program at least half-time, they would be exempt from the work requirement. And half-time is a designation that would be determined by that particular program. around that half-time status. And again, so if a program identifies that their program uses half-time status, the person is enrolled more than half-time, they would meet an exemption and not have to meet the work requirement. Then if someone's participating regularly in a drug or alcohol addiction treatment program as well. And then in the last row, these again are typically things that are captured in the system, but for your awareness, if someone's meeting the work rules of another program, like they're on TANF or unemployment compensation, or they've applied for or receiving unemployment benefits, those are things that would also qualify exemptions. And typically those are things where we have data matches and things like that in our eligibility system. Also, if someone was residing in an area of the state that had a waiver, they would be exempt. In Illinois, again, because of the changes to HR 1, we don't qualify for, a waiver for any part of our state, so that doesn't apply. So again, these are the exemption reasons. We have a screener tool on our website that can just help raise awareness and serve kind of as a checklist for people to go through and see if they meet one of these exemption reasons. And then individuals can request one of those exemptions at any time. They can call their FCRC, they can go in person. There's also a request for exemption form, the 2341, that they can submit and check the box for which of those reasons apply to them. And what's really important is we want to stress that people, their self-attestation, so people sharing this information with the worker around the exemption that applies to them, that will work for the exemption. Additional proof may not be needed unless the FCRC caseworker finds that something is questionable, that they need additional information. But just want to let you know that generally, again, that individual, they can report it, they could provide the details to their FCRC caseworker, and that self-attestation is most likely going to be enough for them to get that exemption. Here's just a screenshot of that form, and all of these forms that I'm sharing and a list of exemptions. Again, it's all of this is available through our IDHS Federal Impact Center. We'll make sure you have the link and also the slides for that information. But you can see here, this is a form that individuals can use. They can check off one of the reasons here that align with those exemption reasons that I went through on that slide, and people can submit this to their FCRC, and the FCRC will determine if they meet an exemption. There's also a form if the caseworker were to ask for additional proof because something was questionable when that person shared their information. We want to make you aware there's also this 2340 form available on our website where, a healthcare professional or a social worker or staff who works with this person at a community organization can submit information to help support that individual's exemption request. Again, generally that person's self-report would be sufficient, but this form is also just there as a resource for our customers and providers who work with them. So now shifting to talk about meeting the work requirement. So to meet the work requirement, an individual must spend 20 hours per week or 80 hours per month working. As Gerald said, working here could be paid work, unpaid, or in-kind work, or participating in one of the approved qualifying work programs that is operated or supervised by state or local government, or doing self-initiated community service with a community-based organization, or any combination of those things for 80 hours. With the work programs, there are specific work programs outlined in the federal law and regulations that are allowable for individuals to meet the work requirement. So here's a list. I think a lot of you are Title I, and so you can see Title I. WEO Title I is one of those qualifying work programs. SNAP Employment and Training, that's administered through my office, is also one of them. Jobs for Veterans State Grant Program through IDES. And of course, Matt Bruce will talk about Job Ready Illinois. And these are some other programs that are administered and supervised by state and government partners that are also approved as qualifying work programs. So we have the Job Training and Economic Development, JTED program, Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, CEJA program, Senior Community Service Employment Program, CSEP through Department of Aging. And then through Chicago Department of Family and Social Services, their industry-specific training program and transitional jobs program. So this is our current list of those qualifying work programs. I know that vocational rehab and Title II, we are working with ICCB and also our IDHS colleagues in terms of, Title II and Title IV. Title IV, certainly you are working with individuals who have significant challenges to, obtaining and keeping employment. And so really thinking about ways to help those individuals request exemptions. Because again, the key thing is you can do both, right? We want the workforce system to continue to support those who are interested and have meet the program eligibility to participate in the workforce system. And if they meet an exemption, they can also request that exemption and continue to participate in the workforce system without that work requirement, without those 3 counted months, because of the barriers that they have. But this is the list of those qualifying work programs. We are working with our government partners to add additional programs to this list, and this is also on our IDHS Federal Impact Center. After I will first turn it over to Matt Bruce, and then, there may be questions that people have around verification options for the half-time or more and for work programs. And so I can go into that afterwards. But first, I want to make sure to turn it over to Matt to talk about Job Ready Illinois.
Sheena, did you want to pause for questions?
Oh, yes. I didn't see any in the Q&A or chat, but yes, thank you, Matt. Let me pause and see if anyone either wants to add a question to the Q&A chat or come off mute.
Looks like Robin has possibly a question, if we're okay coming off mute. Perfect. I will go and do that. All right,
Hi,
Robin,
Rob.
you are.
Sorry. Okay, so I was late coming to this. I got detained and wondering if you can send me the PowerPoint because I missed like the first half of this and I really want to hear it. So you guys can send that to me in my email, maybe. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's all I needed.
Great. Yeah, we see that question in the chat too. Yeah, we'll share both decks, and I believe this is recorded too. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, turn it over to you, Matt.
Okay. Okay, hopefully people can see the slides. And okay, so I'm going to skip through some of the beginning of this presentation because Sheena already covered the content. I will just reiterate that we always defer to the SNAP Federal Impact Center. I know Sheena shared that, but it's the best place to check for updates. And while we do have information on the Job Ready Illinois website about guidance around SNAP work requirements, we try to mimic and stay exactly the same as what DHS guidance is. So, and as they change, they'll be putting the updates there. So this is how I describe what Sheena was just sort of going through, is that in terms of minimizing the impact of SNAP work requirements, first step is maximize exemptions, and then to help people meet work requirements, and then increase qualifying work program enrollment. So as she mentioned, Job Ready Illinois is on the approved list. One of the ways we went around doing that is that Job Ready Illinois is a public-private partnership, but the public side of that is actually Cook County. So Cook County submitted under the system the sort of a process that she and her colleagues set up with the state in order to be on that list of qualifying work programs. The origins of it actually came from our colleagues at DCO, where I work for a collaboration of foundations. I should have said that at the beginning. I'm Matt Bruce. I lead the Chicagoland Workforce Funder Alliance, which is hosted at the Chicago Community Trust. And our collaboration of foundations has, over the years, partnered with state agencies in many different ways. Last summer, when HR1 came out, we started helping them with sort of just project management and shared planning between Sheena and her colleagues at DHS and Gerald and his colleagues at DCO about how the two systems could work together better now that work requirements were coming up. So, for example, one of the things that came out of that was the collaboration we see between DHS and DCO getting all those programs on the list of qualifying work programs. But it was that same sort of collaborative table that Job Ready Illinois came out of. It was actually DCO's concept originally. And it was going to be built within Illinois WorkNet. But in about January of this year, for various reasons, some of that was funding, some of that was just timing and speed. We concluded it needed to be a public-private partnership constructed outside, like in partnership with DCO and DHS. Um, and so over the course of, say, February and March is when Job Ready Illinois came together. My collaboration foundations and a specific foundation called Origami Works Foundation worked to put it together. Um, and the other host you'll see in terms of the organizations involved is something called the Innovation Nexus, which is really just the name of the public-private partnership between our foundations in Cook County and other public entities in the Chicago area for workforce technology. So it was helpful that we had that existing. We're able to use Job Ready Illinois to host it. The Nexus is actually hosted at Forefront in Chicago. All right, so I'm going to like the basics of Job Ready Illinois. It has one main landing page, Job Ready IL, or if you spell out jobreadyillinois.com, it goes to the same place. Again, like on that landing page is basic information about SNAP and SNAP work requirements. Again, sort of mimicking the information from DHS, pointing them towards exemptions if that's the right thing for them. Um, and then it offers people two ways to consume the online content, and that's based on geography and language need. So if you select Get Free Online Training, it takes you to a choice screen. We have two versions of Job Ready Illinois, and the reason for that is because when the program was being developed, we didn't know which of these two approaches would work fast enough, which would sort of like meet the deadline. And as Sheena explained, the deadline we were really shooting for was April 1st because we wanted to be able to offer people enrollment in this Job Ready Illinois Qualified Work Program in the month of April so that people wouldn't lose their benefits in May, as so many ended up doing, as Sheena explained. But that was the thing that was pressing our speed. So I'll talk about both versions in turn. Eventually, it'll just be one version. We are sort of testing like user experience between the two versions, and I think a hybrid is probably where we're going to end up. So if you choose a specific geography or choose that you need a language other than English, it'll take you to the second version, which I'll talk about second. But for everyone else, it'll take you to sort of like the main version, which I'll talk about now. So what Job Ready Illinois is, it's basically an online learning management system. So if you've ever done training for your HR department on sexual harassment or ethics or whatever the training is, um, it's that same sort of system where you watch a video about something. There's like exercises that reinforce the content, quizzes, things like that. And it sort of covers a unit of content in that way. And the way that it's broken up is into 20-hour courses or courses that count for 20 hours towards work requirements. As Sheena explained, in a given calendar month, and the calendar month really is important, you have to have 80 hours in order to meet the work requirements. And that can, as Sheena explained, that can be in any combination of a qualified work program like Job Ready Illinois or paid work or unpaid work, so volunteering. But you have to add up to 80 hours. And so the design of this is to A, make it possible for someone to get the 80 hours, but B, also make it possible for them to combine hours from this program with those other ways of getting hours like volunteering is we sort of we coursify it. And so each course is worth 20 hours towards that. The content itself is from workforce partners. And actually, this is another benefit we see as a group of foundations. We're able to sort of like lift up workforce agencies and promote their content and share it more widely. And it is created in such a way that we think it's possible to meet that 20 hours in a course, which is really about 1 week, roughly speaking. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about how these courses work. So one of the things that is allowed within a qualified work program is up to 49% of the time in that qualified work program can be an independent job search. So one of the things that this version, the LMS version or Thinkific version of Job Rate Illinois does is it gives 9 hours of credit for independent job search. So at the very first thing you see in any of the courses is that explanation that like you are taking this course, but we are, assuming we are giving you credit that you are doing independent job search while you are taking this course. You have to attest at the end of taking the course that you're doing that, and you have to attest that you've kept records of doing the independent job search. It's similar to the process that IDS uses for staying on unemployment insurance. But with that 9 hours, now we have to have like 11 hours of content in the course. And that's where the main sort of content areas of the course come. And so it's usually broken into say 6 to 12 modules. Each module will have like a short video, could be anywhere between 5 and 20 minutes, but on average, it's about at least 2+ hours of content during the course of taking the course. And then after each video, it is a set of activities. And so one of the things we're doing with these sets of activities is trying to minimize the amount of time someone needs to spend staring at a screen in order to get their 20 hours of content. But the activities are, related to the video. They might, go and do one of the things that the video talks about, and it sort of gives them credit for the time that they're doing that. So the first month on Job Rate Illinois is really critical because when you sign up and you sort of enroll in this, everyone is enrolled in the same 4 courses. It's sort of they come together as a bundle. And the reason for that is that we need to be able to sort of keep those courses in order and be able to say to DHS at the end of the month that this person took these 2 courses or these 3 courses or these 4 courses during that same month. And so everyone gets the same first 4 courses. And they are, sort of basic introduction to the workforce system. So there's a Workforce 101 course, which is presented by a WIOA Title I, also SNAP ENT, sort of provider and expert, National Able, which if you're in the Chicago area, you probably know well. They run the AJC in Pilsen. They also serve as a SNAP ENT intermediary. So the National Able sort of walks through like the basics of the workforce system, like what AJCs are, what WIOA is, how to access the public workforce system. And then there's a couple units at the end that are from IDES about Illinois job links, like how to access Illinois job links. So Workforce 101 is trying to be what it sounds like, an introduction, a sort of bridge to the public workforce system. Another course in the first bundle is all about community colleges. So like how to get student supports at community colleges, how to find training at community colleges, how to do work-based learning at community colleges. Um, there's a course about executive functioning skills, which are sort of like some of the core basics of any sort of job readiness or career readiness, soft skills, presented by New Moms, which is one of the workforce organizations in Chicago. And then the last course in the bundle now is called Career Foundations from Women Employed. It's all about career navigation and career exploration. So this sort of opening bundle is like just the fundamentals for workforce development. And then once someone has done the opening bundle, they can then do new courses after that. We're continuing to add courses. We'll be actually issuing an RFQ soon to sort of solicit course partners. But we already have a lot of like new courses that have come out in May, for example, or are going to come out soon. Like the next one to come out will be a financial literacy 101 course. So, and this is what the landing page looks like, or one of the sort of early pages in Job Illinois looks like. There's an opening video that explains how what I just described works. And then the very last step in this is once you've like completed these courses, whether you've done the 20 or the 40 or the 60 or the 80 hours, you get a certificate with the Job Ready Illinois logo, which has been written to meet the specifications or needs from DHS. And the instructions are to upload that certificate to what's called Manage My Case, the sort of the user interface for SNAP eligibility and SNAP requirements. You can also bring a paper version of the certificate in person to a DHS office, or you can mail it to DHS. But the best and the preferred way is to upload it to Manage My Case. So that's the first version of Job Ready Illinois. The other version, which you only get if you select a specific geography, there's a couple counties or a few specific zip codes, or if you need Spanish or some other language. And that is a uh, LMS called Metrics Learning. The fundamental differences between the two versions is that in the version I just described, where we are creating the courses and uploading the courses, is that you don't have the content in that LMS system. That's why we can offer unlimited licenses or unlimited users because it's a different kind of LMS partnership or a different kind of purchase that we've made. For this version, Metrics Learning, or you might have heard of something like Coursera, similar concept. You do have to purchase licenses, so every user has a cost. But in exchange for that, you get a lot of content. Like there's hours and hours of content on Metrics Learning, a lot more different like topics covered. We don't need to create any content. So that's one advantage. Um, the another advantage is that you can do it in more languages, so it's good to have that to offer. The disadvantage would be that it's expensive, so we only have so many licenses for metric learning, hence the sort of restrictions on it. And the other disadvantage so far is that we're not able to construct it in the same way as the first LMS I described. So in the first LMS, we can give people credit for independent job search and credit for time doing activities where they're not in the system. And that is one of the challenges with metrics is that in order to get hours of metrics, you have to be on metrics, consuming the hours, like consuming the content. But it does have a lot of nice features. This is what the landing page for the metrics version looks like. So it also has like lots of different types of content that are available through it. There's actually so much on metrics. Some of the work is actually curating it, so it actually fits what would be appropriate for Job Ready Illinois. Um, the last thing to cover is we in this presentation I've made it a lot of different settings, and we always sort of make this call to action, which is to help our communications partnerships, like help us get the word out, which is part of what we're doing this morning about Job Ready Illinois. Now that we're about a month and a half in, we have some of the statistics about it. So about 1,000 people enrolled in it in April, and it's hard to know the second thing you'd want to know about, well, how many of those 1,000 people met work requirements or used this to meet work requirements and stayed eligible. We do know about maybe 300 to 400 people got the full 80 hours. Um, but then there's a larger number that got 60 hours or 40 hours or 20 hours. And what we don't know, unfortunately, is like whether they got what they needed or not. So we know there is a universe of people out there that only needed 20 hours from Job Ready Illinois. And so what we're working on is like an evaluation plan and survey and focus groups and things like that in order to better understand how it's performing. It's roughly on track in the second month to like serve another 1,000 people or enroll another 1,000 people. But the part of the work now is to help continue to get the word out about it so more people know that this is an option. Um, in the future, we will continue to work with these state partners and other state partners around, can this be used for Medicaid work requirements? We think that it can be helpful in that context, but the sort of the details of that still all need to be worked out. And these are some things that I mentioned before. We continue to add content. There'll be an RFQ soon. Eventually, we're evaluating the two versions and probably merging them together in some way and get to a sustainability plan. One of the things we've talked about in more specifically the Title I or the WIOA context is how to make this more aligned and sort of connected with Illinois WorkNet. It doesn't do the same things that Illinois WorkNet does, but we think it could be complementary. So, for example, like content on Job Ready Illinois can be useful in all sorts of workforce programs. Like I said, there's a course about financial literacy. There'll be a course about um, digital literacy that we're working on with Scale It. There's already a course about worker rights and sort of know your rights in workplace settings. Any of these things could be an asset to another workforce program, and it's free because it's already there and online. So figuring out how to make this more of an asset to the system and not just about the specific SNAP challenge is part of the work going forward. And I think that's the end of the presentation. So feel free to email partner@jobreadyillinois.com. And I think we can change to questions or discussion.
Matthew, there is actually a question in the chat that says, we do WIOA in the Illinois for Native Americans by Chicago City Colleges won't take our very generic DOL training agreement. Does anyone else have this issue with them or what to do?
Hmm.
I'm not as familiar with what the implications are if the city colleges doesn't take the training agreement. I don't know if someone wants to come off mute, but I was going to say, purely from the work requirement perspective, if you're working, well, one, if that person's a Native American, explore with them, and they're on SNAP, explore with them requesting that exemption that's available for certain Native Americans. And if they were enrolled in participating in WIOA Title I, that would be a qualifying work program for them for the work requirement. So just answering that piece of it. But I don't know, Gerald, if you have any context for this person's question, or Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, it might have help to have more detail by generic uh, training agreement. Are you talking about vouchers? Like you have an ITA and they won't take the ITA?
And Matt, I was just going to add, um, if Vincent, is this your question about just working on drafting an MOU or training authorization format with city colleges? If that's the case, it's something that it's tricky to really navigate just because city colleges itself is a very broad institution. And you have to very much work with their formatting of things. So instead of using a DOL or USDOL WIOA agreement, you have to very much work with them to be more very institutional specific compliance and procedure requirements. So it's a conversation that we can have offline specifically. I can put my email in the chat and then we can talk this offline and see how we can assist you with that.
Any other questions specific for Job Ready Illinois? If not, I can also just share a little bit of information on like the verification options, for those of you who do Title I and other programs. Let me just pause for a couple minutes to see if any other questions. Do you see any hands? Okay. All right. So I will share my slides again, but just 2 points that I thought just to reiterate is again, really, for all of you as you work together in the workforce ecosystem, really looking at that both and approach, right? So of course, checking with that individual, are they appropriate for your program? Do you have available openings? And like certainly helping them participate in your program as appropriate. And having them explore if they might meet an exemption. That again just takes away the anxiety of that work requirement hanging over them if they meet one of those exemptions, but they certainly can still be part of your program. So thinking about in that both and way of making sure, even if someone's interested in your program, check first if they have an exemption, right? But then also just so appreciative to Matt and all the partners who put together Job Ready Illinois, since it gives us this, really flexible option available to people statewide, unlimited numbers can participate in that program, and really encourage all of you to think about how to really leverage that opportunity to help individuals connect to that, maybe as even a first step as they figure out what another program might be a good fit to help them get to their career goals, but that this can be a great option, especially if, for example, there's a wait list or, they're interested in a program that has a cohort model that doesn't start for 3 months. And, what do they do in the interim? And so really thinking about Job Ready Illinois and how it can help individuals meet while they're, waiting for something to open up, while they're waiting for, enrollment in a program. As Matt said, if they're, already working some hours or doing community service some hours, how this can be an add-on. I know some of you, if you're, JTED or CJA or some of those qualifying work programs I mentioned, knowing your program design, and maybe there's parts of your program where, contact with the customers is less frequent, how then you could partner with Job Ready Illinois to help that person to continue to meet. The other thing very quickly I'll just mention too is while I pull up my slides on the verification options. Okay, because I do also, just want to emphasize like the types of activities that can count for this when we're looking at the time. And so I'll go over that. I know Matt spoke to it a little bit. But first, if your program does use that halftime designation, I want to give an example of what that verification could look like, so that, that SNAP recipient, they can request that exemption for halftime enrollment in a, school training program or institution of higher education. And if needed, you can help with submitting verification to back up, that their enrollment. And again, based on the law and the SNAP rules, that halftime designation is really determined by the program. So please confirm with your leadership whether that applies to your program. And if it does, you can prepare a letter, use any other kind of document. There's flexibility. We're sort of suggesting a letter on letterhead just so that it, looks official, but there's a lot of flexibility that indicates the person is enrolled in your program halftime or more. We're recommending that the letter include, the date, the person's name. We recommend always including date of birth because for our FCRC caseworkers, that is really helpful for them in looking up to make sure they're looking at the correct client. So if there's people who have similar names, the date of birth is really a crucial piece of identifying information. So include that if you have it. And then the individual's contact information, because that way, if the FCRC caseworker has any questions, they can reach out to that person directly. Also, then, if you could provide, your program name, maybe a brief description of, the type of your program that the individual is enrolled half-time or more, include your signature and your contact information. Again, that way, if the FCRC caseworker is looking at that documentation but has a question, makes it really easy for them to be able to contact you and get those questions answered to move forward in determining that exemption for that individual. So again, this is sort of a recommendation on the type of information to submit if your program uses that halftime or more. Again, this would mean that person is exempt from the work requirement, so they don't have to, do the 80 hours monthly. They're not at risk of losing their SNAP. This person would be coded as meeting this exemption. And again, they verify this up front, and then the workers will be asking about this again during their renewal to see if they're still in this program and if this still applies. Then if you are a work program provider in one of those qualifying work programs I spoke about, so, Title I, Jobs for Veteran State Grant Program, or CJA, JTED, any of those programs, this is an example of, how you could submit the verification once that person has completed their first 80 hours. It's similar to the halftime or more in terms of the person's name, date of birth, their contact information, the number of hours in your program, your signature and contact information, and just something indicating that, this person has done the 80 hours in your program. And then, again, you'll have these slides for future reference, but this third example is one of, let's say, co-enrollment with Job Ready Illinois. We know that some of our JTED and CJA providers, for example, may be considering something like this, knowing their program design, knowing how it's set up, that they must submit something that this individual is co-enrolled in both programs. So wanted to make sure you have those examples. But the other thing I do want to stress is even, with the 80 hours, right, things like prep time, homework time, self-study, as Matt said, even the independent job search, as long as it's less than half the time that they're spending in the program each week, right? All of that time can count. So in thinking about the 80 hours, just knowing that it's not sort of, a time clock, punch in and punch out, or sort of hours in the seat where we're watching the clock. It's really knowing, based on your program design, based on all of the time that that person reasonably has to put into being part of that program, what are those hours, and going based on that. So just want you to know, again, there's that flexibility around that, that we know that, again, work program is much more than just hours someone might be in a seat, right? So just thinking about that as well. And then, as Matt and Gerald spoke to, this is just one of many strategies we're working on to help people keep their benefits and regain eligibility. We're also expanding opportunities for community service offerings, because that's one way to meet alone or in combination the 80 hours. We also are expanding our SNAP outreach program so that we have more individuals out there helping to educate, raise awareness, help people apply to their renewals, help them understand how to regain eligibility. Also working, as I said, with our workforce system to see how we can work together in a coordinated fashion to, again, help people both get exemptions, but also to meet the work requirement, how we can leverage together as a system the flexibility with Job Ready Illinois. And then, as Matt spoke to, our SNAP Employment and Training Program, again, through my office, we are looking to expand our program, and National Able, our intermediary, is helping us with that expansion. So here in the slides, you'll see there's a link also from our Federal Impact Center to our Galaxy Digital site for volunteer opportunities. People can certainly, find their own. They can go to their local church or pantry and find their own volunteer opportunities. But this platform is a way that we have one place to capture a lot of opportunities around the state to help people who need help finding those opportunities. And certainly your organizations can find more information on adding any volunteer opportunities that you may have that are available. This speaks a little bit to our SNAP ENT expansion. Again, the key thing is, for programs that are really well positioned to serve SNAP recipients who may have multiple barriers, to provide that case management, supportive services, and allowable activities under our SNAP ENT program, and also have non-federal funding sources, so state funding, local philanthropic dollars, and/or community development block grants. CDBG is the one federal exemption. And so providers that, again, have that right mix of activities and capacity and funding sources, really encourage you to think about learning more about our SNAP ENT intermediary model. We'll be doing info sessions in the future on this. And then here again is just a reminder about our Federal Impact Center. And so with that, I will stop sharing and just again see what questions there are for myself or for Matt.
I had a question for you, Sheena, while we're waiting. Is Illinois Works potentially going to be on the list? I saw it wasn't on the slide.
Yeah, so I know that is something we're continuing to work with DCO and our other, state and local partners on exploring additional programs that might meet the criteria. So again, if there are programs, those of you on the call, if you didn't see your program there, but it's operated or supervised by, again, a government entity, reach out to your government contacts and flag for them this opportunity. Does that answer your question, Matt?
I guess so. Is Illinois Works then in the queue, they're figuring out how to get on the qualified list?
So that one hasn't been submitted to us yet, but I know that, I think discussions are happening around that, but it hasn't been submitted to us yet.
Got it.
Oh, I do see a question. Can you please explain what verification is needed for in-kind unpaid work and what contract and verification is needed for migrant seasonal workers? Okay, so great question. So for in-kind and unpaid work, I think it would be similar to what I shared, but just that it indicates, the kind of work someone's doing, how often they're doing that work, and just provides more of those details. That could be something that the individual themselves can submit, depending, again, on their specific circumstance. So I think, again, if someone's doing in-kind or unpaid work, I think the first step is to report that to their FCRC caseworker, and their caseworker can help them figure out exactly what's needed based on their specific circumstance, right? Because it just could look so many different ways when they're doing in-kind or unpaid work. So for that, I would say encourage them to report it to their caseworker, and they'll help them. In terms of the migrant and seasonal workers, that would be similar. There are, some specific provisions around migrant and seasonal farm workers. I'm just trying to pull it up really quickly. Again, though, I would just encourage situations like that, encourage the individual to, again, call the call center, go into their local office, but talk to an FCRC caseworker who can kind of help them navigate those specific rules, because again, it may be somewhat case by case. And on our Impact Center, I'm pretty sure we do have the ABE call center number. If I can find it quickly, I can also put it in the chat. And the forms for, reporting community service are on also our website. And again, we don't require a specific form. There's a lot of flexibility.
As I'm hearing, one of the things I should have mentioned is that this is true for all the qualified work programs, for Job Ready Illinois too. Once you've verified with the FCRC, so you've uploaded the temp management case, and DHS now has you enrolled in this qualified work program, you don't have to re-verify the next month. So you'll keep getting certificates from Job Ready Illinois as you complete courses, but there's no need, and we don't, and sort of we instruct on this, like you don't upload those to the FCRC or to ABE anymore. It's when your recertification for SNAP rolls around again, and we'll have a process in place for that. But that's one of the nice things about this is that you're not constantly sending in like, yes, I'm still doing 80 hours. Yes, I'm still doing 80 hours. Once you've established it, then you're good until recertification.
Thank you so much, Matt. Yes, for emphasizing that point that again, it's upfront and then again at renewal. So it doesn't have to be a monthly reporting as Matt said.
And that's true even if you've mixed and matched. So if you've done like 40 hours of Job Ready and you show that you did 40 hours of volunteer, for example, you're not expected to show that same thing the next month. So you're expected that you're enrolled like that until recertification comes around again. Is that right, Sheena? Yeah.
Yes, that's right. I see another question. What is the process for how individuals can get the one-time eligibility period after losing benefits and then fulfilling the work requirements? Just reach out to the caseworker. And yes, so I think what this person might be saying is, let's say we have an individual, they were identified as someone who has to meet the work requirement, February, March, April, they were not meeting, they lost their eligibility May 1st. Let's say they then did 80 hours of WIO Title I in a 30-day period. They, apply for SNAP, they provide that verification, they're now on the program. If that individual then stops meeting and they report that to their caseworker, one time in the 3-year period, they can get an additional consecutive 3 months. But as the person mentioned, as part of their question, really the key is to reach out to the caseworker. And so again, if someone meets the criteria to reapply, regain eligibility, they now meet an exemption. They can submit an application, they can contact their FCRC and to start that process and show that they now meet the exemption. Or again, if they regain by doing 80 hours in 30 days, so that could be 80 hours of Job Ready Illinois or 80 hours of combination of volunteering and Job Ready Illinois or WIOA. Again, they can apply again for SNAP, contact their FCRC and meet that criteria for regaining. And then once they've regained, if they then lose their eligibility, again, they would reach out and report that to their caseworker. And one time in the 3-year period, they can get 3 additional consecutive sort of bonus months, as we call them. And I'll add something about those bonus months into the slides since someone asked about it. Hopefully I answered that question for the person who asked. If not, feel free to add another. All right. Looks like we're at time. We are happy to share our slides. Thank you so much for your engagement today. Really excited again about the opportunities of Job Ready Illinois. And thank you so much for helping our SNAP recipients to help keep their benefits and also to regain eligibility.
Yes, we really appreciate you guys coming out here and staying for this presentation and interacting, asking all of those great questions. Again, remember that this recording and these materials will be shared with you after, so if you ever need to go back or reach out for questions, you are able to do so. There will be a survey that is going to hit your inbox through email within the next 24 to 48 hours. We would love to hear your feedback. And I believe, unless anyone else has anything to say, that is all that we had for you today. All right. Lovely. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.